Being here just reminds me, because we had to shuffle rooms, how autonomous AI would have been a disaster without an actual person sitting there being helpful, right? So I am Dr. Jasmin Cowin, Associate Professor at Torrey University and the Richard Nathan Public Policy Fellow for the Rockefeller Institute of Government for 2024-25. Today, I want to examine the realities, tensions, and institutional readiness surrounding autonomous AI in US schools and educational institutions. I will move through three interpretive stages: denial, entanglement, and awakening, drawing on John Wyndham's The Kraken Awakes as an allegory. I'm a huge science fiction fan. For systematic adaptation to new intelligence. So, before I begin, what's your initial concern or thought or skepticism on AI in education? Hold that thought, we'll return to it at the end. Stage one, denial, the surface calm. So I am setting a framework for stages of encounter. In Wyndham's novel, he describes humanity's gradual confrontation with an alien intelligence. It begins with disbelief, moves through resistance, and ends up with reluctant adaptation. Sound familiar when you think about education? These stages, denial, entanglement, and awakening, this is what I call them, I believe mirror how education systems react to this technological transformation. So, in stage one, the denial, the surface calm. Strange fireballs fall, yet society assumes stability. In stage two, we have the entanglement. The ships start sinking. In stage three, we have the Kraken rises. Humanity accepts coexistence with these aliens. In this case, hopefully, we will accept coexistence and begin to reorganize. So I'll use this framework to chart how AI moves from novelty to necessity in educational context. So I want to see where everybody is. Where is your thought that we are? Are we in denial with education institutions? Are we in the entanglement phase? Or are we in number three, awakening? Hold up a finger to let me count. 1, 2, or 3. Aha. We are not in sync. Let's see how we're going to do this. So Vernon Winch, who was a I'm a major fan of him, predicted within 30 years we'll have the technological means to create superhuman intelligence. Shortly after, the human era will be ended. This is sort of like that transhumanist vision. But I believe that we need to look at this denial, which mirrors current AI risk debates in education, where potential existential threats, look at what went down last week when everything went down, including our learning management system, may be overshadowed by corporate optimism or market-driven imperatives. So I created a little AI timeline to show where we are in the grand scheme of time. So if anybody wants it, I'll give you my QR code on LinkedIn and you can ask for some of these slides. So we really have the foundations of AI laid in the 1940s. We see a spiral going outward. I like organic, forms. And you see in the 2010s the deep learning revolution. Then we had the AI winter. And then in the 2020s, we see these large language models. And it ends with 2 seminal papers. And one of them is a must read. So the language models are few short learners. And my favorite one, Leopold Aschenbrenner's Situational Awareness and the Decade Ahead. He has since left OpenAI, formed a hedge fund, and made $1 billion. I am crying when I just think of it. Anyway, so let's go on. The 6D model was first articulated by Peter Diamandis. And I am using this to look at where we are now. So we have digitization, deception, disruption, dematerialization, demonetization, and democratization. And it provides a roadmap for how digital tools evolve. And we can actually see where we are, right? So we are digitizing everything. It's sort of, we are in that deceptive, disruptive phase. We will move with the Khan Academy model probably to a more demonetized model, and then we will shift away, especially in assessment, from any physical testing centers like Pearson or the SATs. And then eventually, I'm using assessment as one of the examples, look at universal access to assessment tools. How that's going to play out, I am not quite sure. So what does this mean? In the beginning, when we think about technology development, right? We are looking, when we are in this deception early adoption curve, new technologies like VR-based teacher simulation or advanced proctoring tools might be dismissed as less rigorous. But we are getting there because there's more substance to it, right? So I always take Uber as the prime example, Uber or DoorDash. Remember when in New York City you had yellow taxis and a medallion was worth $750,000. Okay, so let's look at this. What did Uber do? It digitized it. But nobody took it seriously, right? Because it was deceptive. Then it became disruptive. It was demonetized in that sense that, you know, the medallions basically dropped in value. Like a medallion is worth, like, I think something like $20,000 today. It dematerialized, so you just have an app and you can call anyone, Lyft, whatever. Even in Russia, when I was in Russia working at the National University of Science and Technology many years ago, they had an Uber app, not Uber, but their own Uber app. And you have universal access almost anywhere except Germany, because in Germany, the taxi drivers are unionized. So let's take a look at where we are, practically speaking. We have teaching assistants and course Q&As. We have that at Georgia Tech. This is not exhaustive, just as an example. We have adaptive tutoring and courseware, Alex, Carnegie Learning, the Mathia, which is a cognitive tutor. Then we have the CMU Open Learning Initiative. We have automated grading and assessment support, automated proctoring, and then we have personalized messaging systems in STEM courses. So these are the beginnings of this implementation of digitization and deception, right? It's not yet disruptive. Let's take a look at number 2. We now reach the stage of entanglement. As Wyndham wrote, it's been the reluctance to postulate an intelligence that's been the chief stumbling block. At this point, AI will be able to shape decisions about learning, analytics, assessment, student support, and many other pieces. And the boundary between human and algorithmic agency becomes porous. This is also where those policy tensions start emerging. So what are those? Because now we're getting entangled, right? Because we have AI everywhere. I have AI everywhere. I'm a professor. You know, I have to tell you the amount of large language model writing that's appearing, you know, was in the beginning was somewhat frustrating. I have changed the way that I teach. I demand proof of work. And I teach my teacher candidates how to use structured prompt engineering. I vet my prompts, I give them the prompts, I let them run them. They have to do screenshots, they have to annotate the screenshots with what they did, they have to prove the outcome, and then they have to reflect on how that is better than what they could have done or not done. Okay, let's go and see what's going on. So data control and administrative responsibility. Administrators will one day depend on autonomous AI, this is something that I predict, to monitor attendance, predict academic risk, or optimize scheduling, right? Yet, decision accountability remains unclear. When an algorithm makes a harmful or biased recommendation, determining whether responsibility lies with the district, vendor, or government agency or school becomes a policy tension requiring explicit delineation in contracts and government's frameworks, right? So, what happened earlier today? I was scheduled for a different place. If this had been run by an autonomous AI, I would have not had anybody to speak to, and I would have been very unfortunate because the room that was automatically reassigned to me was already with someone who was holding a workshop. I would have been very frustrated. Now let's take that in a different venue. You are running something and there is a scheduling mistake, so the autonomous AI, but there is no more human agency. So who's going to be responsible for that? Because you won't have anybody to talk to. And university systems like University of Houston or my university, we have 30,000 students. You know, that's going to become a very troublesome glitch in the future. So, 2, regulatory compliance and federal oversight. Autonomous AI introduces conflicts between local innovation and national regulation. Government agencies really aim to enforce transparency and explainability through proposed AI government acts, while vendors seek flexibility to advance and test tools rapidly. And the resulting tension is between innovation velocity and the slow pace of regulatory adoption in public education systems. 3, student agency and institutional automation. Students and faculty often experience algorithmic decision-making as opaque. It's a black box. When AI systems autonomously grade work, recommend courses, or trigger interventions, human users, like our students who pay tuition, may lose agency over their learning pathways. And there the policy tension lies in balancing institutional efficiency with the right of students and educators, professors like me, to question and override automated outcomes. So let's take a look at the core of the tension. Misalignment between adoption and governance. So policy tension to me refers to the gap between what technology enables and what governments can oversee. It's not a single conflict, but an ecosystem of frictions among innovation, compliance, ethics, and capacity. Innovation seeks speed, compliance demands control, ethics insists on reflection, and capacity requires resources and expertise. Now we look at the administrative blind spot. Okay, data flow and ownership. When a learning management system integrates a large language model, student data is copied, caged, or repurposed, sometimes stored on external servers. Administrators must be able to answer 3 questions. Where does the data go? Who owns the data? Who has access? And what happens to it if I change vendors, right? The need for data transparency and governance is emphasized in AI implementation guidance, in my opinion. Procurement and oversight gap. Administrative systems often treat AI tools because our administrators are educators or lawyers when you look at provosts and deans, right? And we have small IT departments. We don't pay $150,000, $200,000, not at smaller universities, right? So these tools are often treated like traditional software purchases. Procurement teams rely on standard vendor contracts that omit clauses on model training, data reuse, or bias auditing. IT and legal departments rarely conduct impact assessments before adoption. They will run a test with us faculty, but I have never heard of hearing about, an impact assessment. Faculty and students use embedded AI features like LMS writing assistants without understanding that data is routed through external APIs. And that gap produces an unintentional non-compliance and erodes institutional control over data governance. This is especially important if you're going to be working in dual degree programs, working with the European Union, because there the European AI Act will fine you as an institution. That was what my policy paper was about. So, where are we internationally? Look at that. China and South Korea have nationwide mandates, unlike the fragmented US approach. There is direct government funding and infrastructure support. China has instituted, this is a big surprise, cameras everywhere, right? And they're collecting data. This is how they figure out who gets to do what. And then when you look at Finland and Singapore, there is real teacher training, systematic, government-funded teacher training programs. This is what we need, because if we want to have education for 2060, we need to have teacher educators who are being trained for 2060 today. That's a 35-year lifespan. Every teacher is a multiplier. A teacher has about 300 to 400 students they touch per year. In 10 years, it's between 3,000 and 4,000. And in 30 years, that's about 10 to 12,000 students. So multiply that by 100, by 1,000, by 250,000. That's where your multiplier lies. And we are not investing in it. Charting new waters. We were in the process, while almost unaware of it, of undergoing a species of interplanetary invasion. Don't you like the Kraken? I love the Kraken. So Wyndham describes humanity's realization that an interplanetary invasion has already occurred. Similarly, we are not anticipating in education. I'm not talking about everybody else, only education. We are living within it. This is the awakening stage, where the question shifts from what is happening to us to how do we govern it. Globally, several governance models are taking shape. The European Union's AI Act, effective since 2024, which classifies systems into 4 risk categories and introduces phased implementation. And education and vocational training is in band 3, that is a high-risk category because of student data, proctoring, and anything that has to do with sharing student data. So we lack a federal equivalent, and we have state and institutional frameworks, but these are more like a patchwork space. So where do we look? AI regulation ranges from rights-based to state-controlled, okay? So at the bottom you have the EU, prioritizing individual rights and caution. Then you have the US, we encourage innovation and sectoral guidelines, and China emphasizes state control and security. This is just a broad overlook, right? And that, again, is a regulatory tension. Where do we want to fall? So the EU, with the European AI Act, has now imposed guardrails on a system that is in development, right? So it's a very iffy way to work with something that hasn't been fully, emerged out of its chrysalis yet, right? We are going through a metamorphosis. So how are we going to anticipate what it is that they are speaking? It's a 500-page piece of regulation. I was in working group 4 about governance. Currently, there's very little guidance. So I want you to imagine right now that you are an institution in the United States. Let's say that you are doing international law, and you have a corresponding university like the Sorbonne in Paris. I'm just taking, a name. International law. Okay, so you're doing a dual degree with 2 universities. You're going to have to share student data. The European AI Act has the Brussels effect. So this means that it has an extraterritorial reach, right? So all of a sudden, all of your data and anything that you're doing, from the chatbots that you might be doing, from the proctoring, from the automated grading system, everything that is AI-centric, and you have to intermingle anything with your Paris counterpart, becomes subject to the European AI Act. How would you even go and wrap your head around it, right? Now, those are the policy tensions of the future. It's the same when you look at other countries, Singapore, China. All of these things will require a different skill set than what we have right now in IT and in administration. Our IT is based on student services and keeping our FERPA requirements and making sure that whatever we buy as a software, really adheres to what the university needs and it's safe. This is a different skill set. We do not have, when people say there will be no jobs because AI is going to take it all, that is not true. There are 100 jobs that I could name right now. An AI governance coordinator for international AI governance. That should be a degree. It should be a degree today for the need of tomorrow, right? And when I teach my teacher candidates how to do structured prompting to create differentiated learning materials, it's not the prompting that makes the secret sauce. It's me teaching them to question the output, ideate and debug the prompt, and question yourself if you could have done it better or faster on your own light bulb instead of using a humongous amount of tokens on a large language model, right? Because we run into this danger of becoming metacognitively lazy. So this brings me to the next. Despite regional differences, several common themes are emerging globally, shaping the future of AI. Institutional readiness depends on 3 capacities. AI literacy. And I mean, if the president of the university wishes to buy X thing, he ought to be working with X thing himself or herself. No big, tall stories about what it can do. This is getting in there, digging deep, and being in that experiential space where you try out the tools that are given to you and you see which bugs and issues they have, right? I worked with Blackboard, I worked with Chalk and Wire, I worked with Watermark. All of these tools, are given to faculty. They are promising the holy grail of student data. What we forget is that the onboarding and the learning curve for people to actually be able to do what that specialist who is the head person from the sales team can do, that's going to take time, right? It's going to take time to train people, and it's going to take time to train our teachers, to train our kids so that they are competitive in a global marketplace. I have a program that I work with, Computers for Schools Burundi. I have 12,000 kids in it. We are training our kids on very basic things, including how to do an Excel worksheet, how to run the something. It's not my specialty. I write the curriculum, and we do this. I do this for free because I believe if you want to participate and leave the world a better place, you're going to have to do some stuff yourself and not always expect others to carry the water for you. So, AI literacy, the cognitive and ethical understanding of how AI functions. Human agency, the capacity to determine when to collaborate with AI and when to withhold delegation. Yes, do not give delegation to really important pieces that could cause harm, like locking doors automatically during a fire. During a fire would be one of them. Accountability structures. Transparent mechanisms that distribute responsibility across stakeholders. And these stakeholders are named by name. They are not amorphous stakeholders. So these are the 4 risk categories of the European AI Act. Unacceptable risk, banned systems, high risk, strictly regulated systems, which education falls into, limited systems with transparency obligations. So if I call in Europe, and there is a chat thing or something, I can ask it, are you a person or a bot? And it has to tell me. And I really think that we ought to have a similar opt-out function, right? If I call Citibank or Chase Manhattan and I get one of these, mind you, very nice voices, I should have the right as a consumer to say, I don't wish to interact with you, because every interaction is a data point on the other side. And I don't wish to train their model. I'm sorry. I'm not getting paid for that, right? I wish to have my biometric profile for myself. Coming to the last slide. Denial delays readiness. Entanglement tests governance. Awakening demands foresight. Autonomous AI will not replace educators, but it will certainly redefine educational agency. Our task is not resistance, but stewardship. As Wyndham warned, coexistence between intelligences requires adaptation on both sides. The challenge before us is to ensure that adaptation remains guided by ethical intention and human purpose. So where do you stand now? With your thought of your initial reaction, autonomous AI in education. Optimism, concern, or skepticism? Optimism, the optimists raise your hand. Skepticism and concern. All right, thank you for your time. And